Hey everyone, D&D Detective here. If you haven't checked out my earlier video, the one about setting yourself up to create mods, be sure to do that now. Alright, so now that you are all set up from the first video in this series, we're going to be learning today about how to make a very basic quest in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. By the end of this video, you're going to have learned how to create a quest and also a series of connected quest journal entries, create a new NPC and modify an area file to have that NPC appear in it at a given coordinate, create a dialog file, modify an existing dialog file, and set up a mod that can be installed using WeDo, which helps to minimize modding conflicts. With all that said, I want to make it clear that this might all seem intimidating at the moment, but honestly, once you get used to it, you'll be able to do this stuff in your sleep, so don't worry if it takes you a while right now. Having said that, before I begin, I do want to highlight a few things. If I've capitalized something, it's probably for a reason. Sometimes things in modding won't work unless they are capitalized. If you run your mod and it doesn't work, the most likely reasons are that you are missing needed tildes or some other needed character, you've made a capitalization or spelling mistake, you're having WeDo look for the wrong file name or in the wrong place, or you've missed a step. I've tested out this mod and it works fine. When you try to install the mod, WeDo will let you know what line and roughly where along that line any issue exists, and at least in context you can easily see at the bottom what line you are on. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is make a copy of your WeDo.exe file and post it in the folder the game is installed in. That may be in program files or in the BeebDog library in your user folder. Now you're going to want to rename that copy to setup-izquest.exe. If you plan on sharing your mods with anyone else, you're going to want to replace iz with the unique prefix you chose and registered in the last video. As long as you aren't planning on sharing your modding work, it's fine to use iz, but if you think you might be, it's better to just get that prefix now rather than have to change everything at some later date. The next thing you're going to want to do is make a folder with the name izquest. Now you're going to open up Context or another text editor. You will need to create a new text file and save it in a new folder and give it this name. Be sure to save it in a way that ensures this is a TP2 file. If you're using Context, be sure to select all files under Save as Type. Now you're going to insert the following into that file. The first line here is you creating a backup. This will allow WeDo to easily uninstall your mod and also uninstall it in a way that should not be destructive to other mods that you have installed. The second line here tells the person installing your mod what your name is and gives them a contact address for you to be reached at, so make sure to provide these. The third line has the version number. You can change this over time and it will let people know if they have the latest version. The 4 through 7 lines here have obviously to do with language. Basically, you're setting up the location for where English string files of text can be found by the installer. Also, make sure the English line here is repeated twice. This is needed for it to work. Finally, the begin command is what provides a prompt for the person launching your mod that asks them if they want to install your mod. Larger mods that have multiple components may have more than one of these, but for today, we're going to stick to just the one. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is create a subfolder within the izquest folder. That subfolder is going to be called English. In this folder, you're going to save a .tra file using context with the name izsetup.tra. You can do this in context with the same method used to create the TP2 file earlier. In this empty file, you're going to add just this one line. The reason for using the @ symbol and the number and for creating this separate file is because should you decide to make further mods and share them with the community, this will allow others to easily translate your work into different languages. They can just translate this bit of string. Technically, in your TP2 file, you could have just written install tutorial quest mod instead of having the @ symbol, but this wouldn't have allowed your mod to be translated. So it's a good practice just to use this @ symbol and a TRA file. I want you to make sure all the files you've made are saved. Now you're going to go into your installation folder and run your setup.iz quest file. After you click Y for yes, you should find that it says it's installing. There are no files yet for it to install, but it should say 0 out of 0 were installed. If you get an error, like it's telling you you're missing a translation for the @ symbol, then make sure you look over my code and have the right code down. So now that we have the fundamentals of installing a mod down, we're going to go into the meat of actually creating one. So now I want you to make 3 more empty TRA files in your English folder. These are going to be IZ items, IZ quests, and IZ names. Then you're going to add these TRA files to your TP2 file as so. If you haven't guessed, we're going to be using these for item names and descriptive text, journal entries, and NPC names. So the first thing you're going to do is create journal entries. This is actually pretty straightforward now with the Enhanced Edition games. So let's look at the quest TRA file. Here we're going to write down the following. Make sure to include the line separating the title for the journal entries from the main text of them. This title is critical because each of the titles for a quest needs to be exactly the same for it to match up during installation. Otherwise, you may have journal entries that won't end when a quest is completed. Also, notice how I jumped the reference numbers to @15? This is because you do not want to use the same number here between all your TRA files. So when you're giving a string a number, make sure that number is unique, even from the contents of other TRA files. Now you're going to want to open up your TP2 file and add this line. All this is telling WeDo is that you want to add these journal entries as recognized entries into the game. By putting all of them in this one line, WeDo and the game are going to know that they're part of one quest. This makes ending the quest much easier because you don't have to handle things the old way, which was to erase individual quest entries from the journal when a quest is completed. Now it's time for items. We're going to keep what you're going to type here really basic, so just type this in. The first line is going to be for both unidentified and identified names of the item, and the second line is going to be for the unidentified and identified descriptions for it. Normally, however, when you're making a magic item, these are each going to be different. We're just going to keep things as simple here as we can. The next thing you're going to want to do is to make a dagger. You should have set up near infinity as a result of my last video. Now it's time to start it up. Once you've connected to your chidin.key file, go to the top of the page and click search, followed by CRE/IDM/SPL/STO. Now click item and search dagger. Double click on DAG01. You're going to use this dagger as a template for the weapon featured in this quest. To do this, we're going to make a copy of this file and save it into a new folder in your mod folder called items. So right click on DAG01 and click export. Select your mod folder and then the items folder in it. Now save the file as izdag01 in there. Now that you've done this, be mindful that file names in the Infinity Engine cannot be more than 8 characters in length. So right now, you're using the maximum number permitted. This doesn't apply to installation files like exe, TRA, or TP2 files. Now go to the top of Near Infinity, and under Game, click Open File, find the folder you saved it in, and then click the dagger you just created and open it. So now we're going to do a few things here. First, we're going to make this weapon get treated by the game as though it were a magic item. Then we're going to give it the appropriate taco and damage bonuses given that, and then we're going to give this another magic property. So first, we're going to be making this weapon get treated as a magic item. There are actually 3 different components to this. Allowing the weapon to hit through normal weapon immunity, allowing the weapon to avoid weapon immunities of +1 or greater, and then actually programming in taco, damage, and speed bonuses you'll see with a magic weapon. I want you, when looking at this screen, to hit Edit. Now go down to Flags and select Magical. This flag is used when it comes to determining if creatures immune to normal weapons can get affected by your weapon. If you don't have this flag selected, then your weapons won't work against creatures immune to normal weapons. Next, go down to where it says Enchantment and replace the 0 value here with a 1. This value here tells the game what its enchantment value actually is when it comes to determining whether certain creatures will be affected by a +1 or greater weapon. So if you put a 3 here, instead the game will treat it as a +3 weapon for determining if it will work against whatever it is attacking. Certain oozes, and many enemies in BG2, have these sort of immunities. While you're on this screen, you can also set this item as cursed, which you can find under flags. You can also give it a value of say 65 under lore to identify. Depending on your character's lore value, this will likely make it appear as unidentified in your inventory. Neither of these are essential for just learning the basics, but in our case, they are fitting given the quest at hand. Once that is done, go back to this screen. I want you to double click on melee. Now click edit. Now change the bonus to hit and damage values from 0 to 1. You also want to change the speed from 2 to 1. Be sure to click off each time so that all these values are registered. Now go back to the melee screen. Before you progress further, I want to point this out. You're probably wondering why this dagger casts a spell. It's because the way the Baldur's Gate 1 in particular handles weapon breaking is that it uses a spell file for actually having the game break the item. There's a percentage chance anytime you attack with it of that spell activating, and if it's successful, then the item will break. So you're now seeing a bit behind the curtain of how all of this works. Anyways, the next thing we're going to want to do here is give this item a magic property. In this case, we're going to give its wielder magic resistance. To do this, we're going to find an item with a similar property and simply copy and paste that property into our item. In BGE, there's an item called Batalista's Passport, which has the file name ring02 item that we can use. Once you've found that ring, you're going to want to click edit. At the very bottom, there are two values, effect 0 and effect 1. Select both of them, right click, and copy them. Now go back to the dagger and paste these two effects to the very bottom of the list. Now we're going to want to update the text of our weapon so that people using it will actually know its statistics. Copy out the statistics of the weapon, adding +1 taco, +1 damage, and reducing its speed by 1 in the process. Now add in the line that mentions that the dagger is granting a 40% bonus to the wearer's fire resistance. When modding in the Enhanced Edition games, it's also necessary, when you are using N dashes, to change the encoding of the TRA file you are using to be UTF-8. If you don't, the N dash character won't appear correctly. So once you've finalized your item TRA file, just open it up in Notebook and save it using UTF-8 encoding. At least when it comes to this mod, this issue won't be present in your other TRA files. Anyways, the description of the weapon should look something like this. Now you're going to want to make sure this file gets installed when you install your mod. Go into the TP2 file and add this line of text. The first line is just telling Redo to copy that file in your items folder into your override folder. The next two lines are its unidentified and identified item names, and then these later two are the unidentified descriptions and the identified descriptions for this item. To keep things simple here, we're just going to use the same descriptions. As you can see here, the numbers that are used here line up with the numbers that we used earlier in your item.tra file. So now that you know how to add in a journal entry and how to create a custom item, it's time to run setup.iz quest just to make sure there are no errors. If there are any, go back through earlier steps and be mindful of some of the advice I gave earlier. Now it's time to learn how to make dialogue. So there are two basic aspects of creating dialogue when modding in the Infinity engine. The first, and by far the easiest, is making brand new dialogue for a new NPC you created. The second is inserting dialogue into an existing NPC. I want you to go ahead and make a subfolder called dialog in your modding folder. Now within that folder, create a new file that has a .d file. We'll call it izmendak.d. Alright, so the first thing you're going to need to do in a dialog file is to begin with the word begin, followed by the name of the file. The next thing you're going to do is determine what it is that creature will say to you when you approach them. You generally need to set up some kind of condition that will trigger this dialog. Setting the trigger to be true just ensures that, provided there are no other dialogues set to trigger before it, this dialog file will trigger when this NPC is talked to, instead of any other dialogue. You want to set this as begin 0, because it will then match how you see this file get reflected in near infinity. This part of the dialogue I've highlighted, where the creature is speaking, is called a state. Each state in a file will have a value given to it when you look at it in near infinity, and by starting your value here at 0, that value should match with what you're seeing in near infinity. Now you have your responses. The first thing to know is that I'm using shorthand here when it comes to them. This plus sign means if, and the part in between these tildes is showing what triggers, if any, are needed to be present for this response to appear for a player. In this case, this reply will only show up if a player has a variable value of 2 for the izDagger variable. If they don't, then this reply won't appear. Finally, the second positive sign means then reply. You could actually all write this out as if, then reply, but the bonus signs here are just quicker. The text for your reply goes between the tildes here. Then, if your reply would go to another state in the dialogue, you can use the go-to statement, as I've done here. So choosing this reply would cause this conversation to go to this state, while choosing this reply would cause it to go to this state. You also don't need to have triggers for replies. Finally, on any response where you want the response to exit out of the conversation, then just put exit after the response. At the end of the block of dialogue, you also need to put end. The next dialogue block starts with begin, and you'll continue much as you did before. This format of state 2 is very similar to the last block. However, as you can see, there's no trigger provided for this. This block, and all the ones below it, can only be viewed by the player if they are the target of a go-to statement or something similar. The reason for this is to prevent this specific dialogue from appearing when you talk to an NPC instead of other dialogue. So basically, you're not going to see these appear as a player, unless you choose one of these responses. Alright, so as you can see here, that state 2 and 3 are very different from the earlier states. These have no replies for the party. They are just an endpoint in the conversation. Now with these endpoints, it's super important that you get the formatting right. You're going to see here how I have if then do exit. You need formatting like this, otherwise you're going to get an error. Though if you're taking no actions, you don't need this do here. If then exit is fine. Let's now talk a bit about the actions this line of text is doing. First, we're using the give item create action. What this does is create an item and then gives it to the player. So the person you're talking to doesn't need to have it in their inventory. This is by far the easiest way to give the party an item. The 3 values here just relate to quantity and charges. Since this is not a throwing dagger, we're just going to keep this value at 0. But for items like ammo or gems, this first value would be a 1 or greater. Magic items may also use more than just this first number as well, if they have the ability to cast different spells. For instance, like a wand of fire. So now we're going to use the add journal entry action. The at number you're going to have here is the same one that's found in your quest.tra file. That is going to be followed by one of 3 things. Either you put in quest, info, or quest_done. Putting info just makes it an entry in the journal and not a quest. and putting quest done ends a quest. This is actually an area where the EE improves, because in the past, you would have had to use actions to erase all relevant entries when a quest was completed. You don't have to now. Okay, so now it's time to learn how to edit an existing dialog file. Today we're going to be doing this on Grind. All we're going to be doing is giving the player an additional response when talking to Grind, and also giving Grind something to say back. I want you to create another .d dialog file called izgrind.d. It's here we're going to learn how to append, or in other words, add to, an existing dialog file. So you can see here that I've started the dialog file off with append, followed by the file name that I'm looking to append. In this case, the file name is grind.dlg, but that gets shortened to grind. You can use near infinity to search for what creature's dialog file you want to change. Though be mindful that some creatures, including grind, sometimes have more than one file name. So once you have this append down here, followed by the file name, you're going to want to add as many states as you want to add to this file. In my case, I added 1. You then close off the appending by using this final end. So for each dialog block, you'll have an end statement, and then after that, you'll have an end statement for the actual appending of the file. If you had more than one state here, it would look something like this. Also, because you aren't actually creating a dialog file, but are instead editing an existing one, you don't need a begin statement at the start of this file either, only at the start of any dialog block. The next thing you're going to want to do in this file is use extend top in order to create a reply. In this case, this reply is going to be directed towards state 0 in Grind's file. You can also use extend bottom to put a reply in the bottom of the current replies for a given state, but we're going to be using the top here, which will put a reply on the top. Normally, I'd recommend using extend bottom, but Grind has a lot of replies already, and it'll just be easy for us to miss this reply if we don't use extend top here. So first things first, you can see how this reply will only be available for people who have a global variable of 1 for the izDagger variable. If you recall, back in Mendec's dialog file, we had the game set a variable number if the party was asked to do this quest. The reason we've done this is to ensure that only users of our mod who have talked to Mendec, but who have also not completed the quest, will be able to use this reply. Finally, it's time to create a new NPC. We need a name for that new NPC, and that name is Mendec the Wizard. Open up your name's TRA file. When you do, type in the following. The easiest way to create a new NPC is to copy an existing creature file. In this case, one that is already neutral to the party, and that does not already have a script that will make the NPC approach the party and initiate dialogue with them. You can narrow this down in near infinity using your cursor over search on the top, and then doing the same for advanced search and then legacy extended search. Now select CRE and search for mages under class and neutral under allegiance. This still leads to hundreds of possibilities, but that does give you a taste of how you can use near infinity to search through copies of whatever you need. This same tool can be used to scan through many different area files for a specific monster, as well as many other things. It's actually a very useful tool to use. Anyways, we're going to repurpose arlen.cre and make our own NPC. Go to Edit, and then click Export. Save a copy of this creature file as izmendec.cre and store it in a CRE folder you create in your mod folder. Now go back to your TP2 file and insert the following. These first 2 lines just establish the name of the creature. These third and fourth lines are just changing the voice you hear when you initially meet them and then also when you click on them. I'm only doing this because Arlen's file uses banded sounds, and it really doesn't work for what we're going for here. This number here is just a string reference for an existing string in the game. If you're using a string from the original game, you need the pound key here, followed by the number of the reference. This fifth line is setting the default script for Mendak to just use a script that doesn't exist. If we didn't do this, he would still be using the same default script that Arlen has, and he actually, because of that, would be randomly walking around. We want him in a fixed place here, just to make it easier. And finally, the sixth line sets the name of the creature's dialog file. In the future, there is also a copy existing statement that you can use here that will avoid you having to use near infinity. But I wanted you to give a chance to use near infinity because it also provides a very intuitive way of editing things in a creature file, like creature colors and what items they have. So it's good to learn that as well. So we've got a creature ready with dialogue. So the next step is to actually put that creature into the game. There are two ways you can do this. You can either edit the area script in order to create them that way. You can also edit the actual area file itself and include them within the area file. Both approaches have advantages and disadvantages, but editing scripts, at least in my opinion, is a bit easier to learn. So that's what we're going to do. So I want you to make a new folder in your mod folder called scripts and use context to create a .baf file called izspawn.baf. In that, you're going to write the following. This line is just giving the script a condition for when it will trigger. In this case, when the variable is 0. The default value for any variable is 0, so this script will trigger immediately upon you entering the area we are going to be connecting this to. The next line creates the creature at the coordinates given, and has them face the direction given here. Finally, we're setting the earlier variable to 1 so that the script won't trigger again and again. You want to stop any looping with the script. If we didn't do this, then the variable value featured here would still be 0, and the script would run over and over and over again. Now we're going to want to compile this script and connect it to the area. The area we're going to be using is AR2616, also known as Winthropes Inn. If you start a new game, go into Winthropes Inn and press the X key on your keyboard. When you do this, you should get an indication of where your cursor currently is on the screen. You can also use this to determine what numbers to use when setting up an NPC. Also, it'll tell you what the area file is. In this case though, I've already given you the numbers to work with. And that's about it. Hopefully now, you can go and start your setup file, and install the mod, and then run through the quest in the game. You've now taken your first step to modding in the Infinity engine. As I said at the beginning, at the start of all this, it can be really confusing, especially for people new to programming. But this video should at least give you some tools for how to get started with creating quests in the Infinity engine, in particular, in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. To help you out a bit, I'll post a link to where you can download this mod in the comments. That will provide you with something to compare with your own work. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Depending on how many people are interested, I may make other videos about creating joinable NPCs, how to create your own custom kits, take a deeper dive into dialog files and scripting, and give tips about modding from my years of doing it. Finally, if you have any modding questions that go beyond what is provided in this tutorial, be sure to check out the Beamdog forums, Gibberlings 3, and the SHS forums. There are some really great folks there that will be able to provide much better assistance than I can.